Hello. I love my ever hot coffee from the mug my mother-in-law got me. Stays warm continually. 138 degrees. Well, we've got no time to mess around today. And we're going to try and get through all of chapter 17. I don't know. Let's take a look. It'd be nice to take all 18 verses. It's a lot, but it's also one big subject and it's deep. So I don't know. We'll dive in and see what we can find. Man, I've got all these cross references and verses. This might be tough. But we should all start the morning off the right way, which is by saying hello to one another. Hey, everybody, how's it going? Dad, Susan, Lisa, Irma, all you guys, it's good to see you. Well, I'm going to just flip in my Bible to Jeremiah 51 because I see some references so we can get moving. But it says, then one of the seven angels who had the seven bowls came and talked with me, saying to me, come, I will show you the judgment of the great harlot who sits on many waters, with whom the kings of the earth committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth were made drunk with the wine of their fornication. So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast, which was full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. The woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet, and adorned with gold, precious stones, and pearls, having in her hand a golden cup full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. And on her forehead a name was written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and of the abominations of the earth. I saw the woman drunk with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. And when I saw her, I marveled with great amazement. Well, that just makes perfect sense. So we can just move on because obviously there's no need for explanation. So, no. Here's the deal is there's a lot here. Let's take a look at Jeremiah 51. I just made notes where it says many waters. 51:12 b. For the Lord has both devised and done what he spoke against the inhabitants of Babylon, O you who dwell by many waters. Huh, look at that. It's like the Bible's a great commentary on the Bible. And it says, you made the inhabitants of the earth drunk. Same chapter, Jeremiah 51, verse 7. Babylon has a golden cup in the Lord's hand that made all the earth drunk. The nations drank her wine, therefore the nations are deranged. So once again, the Bible is the best commentary on the Bible. Not Chuck Smith, but it's close. That's an inside joke with some of our young people. I once asked, at our youth Bible study, guys, what's the best commentary on the Bible? And I'm not going to name Daniel Olson by name, but he's like, Chuck Smith. And we're like, no, close, but no. Anyway, we all get a good laugh, and that's one of those jokes that never dies. So here's the idea is we have this mystery Babylon. And now this is symbolic. The next 2 chapters, it's a real thing, but we're getting a picture painted of it. Now, once again, I don't like to say this is what this is unless the Bible says this is what this is. Some teachers are very bold and they're just like, this is exactly what this is. And I just don't have that confidence. Not that I'm not confident in my knowledge or whatnot. It's the fact that sometimes I think we ought to be bold where the Bible clearly and explicitly states things. And we need to be a little more humble and just open to remember, here are some reasons why it points this direction. And here's why it might not. But, let's keep an open mind. I think something that pushes people away from my view of eschatology, a pre-tribulational, premillennial view of eschatology, is because so many people who hold the same view, I'm trying to find the right word. I think wacko is the word I'm looking for. Nut job, perhaps. Maybe that wasn't nice. But the thing is this, is that I post these on YouTube and someone might even watch this. I have people commenting on YouTube videos all the time and they say crazy stuff. I'm talking like mad crazy. And the scary part is they're in the same camp as me. but then they interpret things and they start saying, this is what this represents and that's what that represents. I had someone tell me that Jerusalem was USA because in the middle of the word Jerusalem is USA. JRJERUSALE. And I'm like, dude. So anyway, some people take their interpretations to these crazy extents, like this is what this means and that is what that means. So that's my little side rant. I'm just saying, hey, this is what the Bible says. Here are some cross references and verses that'll help us understand it. I'm not going to boldly put my flag down saying this is exactly what it means, but I do think the general interpretation we can understand. So here's the thing. A harlot. Harlotry is a picture often used in the Bible. In fact, I'm studying up for Hosea this coming Sunday, when God's people go a-whoring after other gods. It is used only briefly of Nineveh in Nahum and Tyre in Isaiah, I think. So sometimes it's rarely used of unbelieving nations, like two occasions, but the whole rest of the time, the idea is that, don't get too caught up on that USA and Jerusalem, Enrique. The whole idea is that, okay, good. Whew. I got sidetracked thinking about Enrique and the Jerusalem thing. No, the whole idea is that harlotry, it's God's people. It's when God's people go after foreign gods, okay? And so and maybe not God's people per se even, but those who are called by God's names. This is not an accusation against pagan religions, and it's not an accusation against other, it's not Buddhism we're talking about, and it's not Mormonism we're talking about. It's talking about people who are called Christians in the real sense, but they're really not, because their heart is given over to other things, spiritual adultery, like I just saw Susan post. Don't forget there's a lag here, so I see things off time from when you guys post them. But great point. And so this woman, she's riding the beast, and we see the 7 horns and the 10 crowns. Again, the idea there is 7 heads, 10 horns. Okay, that's the beast, the Antichrist. That was a picture of him. We explained those things previously. And so it seems that, again, kind of like the parenthetical break we had in chapters 12 through 15, now it's a parenthetical break. And just like in chapter 12, where we kind of zipped backwards and looked at the beginning of Israel and fast forward and, caught up to our current time, we're probably going back to probably the beginning of the tribulation, just the idea being that the Antichrist will set up a world religion. Or it won't even be necessary that he sets it up, but the world religion that he the world religion that forms, it rides on him. He is propelling it. He is making this one world religion work, this fake version of Christianity. And it's very pretty, adorned in royal colors and precious stones, purple and scarlet, gold, right? Now, mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots, the abominations of the earth. One of the notes I have in my Bible is that the Roman Catholic Church is too narrow of a view for this. The idea being is that this is not just one church, one group. This will be a formation and a conglomeration of many churches and many things. We can't, I think, really point our finger at one group or one people. We can see historically, I think, how this has been portrayed by different churches. And yes, the Roman Catholic Church has got a lot of stuff that lines up. Dave Hunt's A Woman Rides the Beast. There's a lot of stuff in there that is really good. And it's a book you could go and buy and read. I've got a copy of it right somewhere over there. Up there somewhere. Anyway, so now here's the thing, is it talks about how she's drunk with the blood of the saints and the blood of the martyrs. So this church is going to be persecuting the authentic Christians, much like the Inquisition back in the day of the Renaissance. Now, here's the deal, is that Babylon, I'll just stop, and I guess we'll have to keep going tomorrow, because I think we got enough to chew on right now, and I'll give you some Babylonian history. Oh, who says it? Is it Isaiah? Isaiah says, "Do not weep for Tammuz." Jeremiah makes references to baking cakes for the Queen of Heaven. Here's a little history lesson. And if you really want this, go back, Revival Church on YouTube, on our app, on our website, and go back where I taught Revelation, and you'll get a much longer teaching on this. With, I guess you won't be able to see the pictures I shared because we didn't have pictures back then, but it'll go much more in depth on this if this fascinates you. So Babylon, the city, the original Babylon, was founded by a guy by the name of Nimrod. And he was a guy who rebelled against God. And the idea was that they were building this gigantic Tower of Babel to worship the stars. Babel is where Babylon was started. That's why it's called Babylon. And of course, the Tower of Babel got abandoned, but Babylon was built there. Now, he had a wife by the name of Simeramis. And Simeramis, after Nimrod was killed, this is kind of an interesting, this is the legend, right? Is that she divinely conceived a son using the leftover parts from Nimrod. And that's all I'll say on that. You can read that on your own. And then Tammuz, her son, was killed and brought back to life. What we see here is from the very beginning. This is early Genesis stuff. Genesis 10, 11. I mean, you have to think, I like answers in Genesis, that most of our theology can pretty much be pinned down from Genesis 1 to 11. Everything we need actually is kind of in there. But Satan knew from the beginning that from the seed of the woman, the Messiah would come. And he has been trying to either kill off that seed through his many attempts to put Israel to an end, which, if you haven't heard, just as of yesterday, dozens of rockets are shot out of Gaza into Israel. Satan hates Jerusalem, and he's still after it, I think. But all that said, that he also wants to distort the image. If he's not going to destroy it, he'll do his best to distort it. And what's fascinating is the idea of the Virgin Mother, or the mother who had an immaculate conception, and this child has been worshipped throughout the ages. And when I did this Sunday in church, it was a unique Sunday because we were demoing this gigantic LED screen. It was before we had our new projector screen that we currently have at church. So it was awesome because I got to put these pictures up really big. But I had pictures from all the ancient cultures around the world where they would worship this mother and this divine child. Many people actually twist it and they try and say, see, Christianity's ripping off those ancient cultures. It's like, no. That's not how it works. And so, Dallas just shared about Israel too. Nice. And so, you see it in the Bible that people were still worshiping Tammuz. Do not weep for Tammuz. People would weep for Tammuz because the son who was killed and then brought back to life, the weeping was for when he died. Then he was resurrected. Ooh. And so from the beginning, Satan kind of knew what was going to happen. And he was trying to bring in false Christs, false messiahs, and trying to replicate that. And what we find happen is Babylon becomes symbolic of all false religion. That was really the first world religion outside of Christianity. In the days of Noah, there were those who believed in God by faith, and then those who just wanted to do their own thing. We have no record of false religion. And so Babylon is the birthplace of false religion. And the other thing that's unique about Babylon is it was truly, Babel, the tower, the last place that all of mankind was united with one heart, one vision, one goal. Okay? Which to me makes almost too good a sense that when the Antichrist is wanting to set up, we're going to rebuild. And God is angry at us because of all of the divisiveness we've had. And this is just the way it plays out in my head, okay? So bear with, God is angry at us because of all the divisiveness. Notice that God has taken all the divisive Christians away. And he destroyed all the divisive Muslims when they were attacking Israel. And now the rest of us are left behind, and we need to be unified. One religion, one way of worship, all of us in our own ways worshiping God together. And what better place to do this than to rebuild the city where was the last place that all of mankind was unified? Babylon. And so you see, it makes sense. It plays out very well. Once again, this is what I'm saying. Like, it makes sense to me, and that's why I believe it. And so there's the idea of rebuilding. So we're going to see in chapter 17, as we finish this chapter, that religious system. And then chapter 18, it talks about the economical and governmental system of Babylon. There's going to be the two sides of it, and it's all going to be destroyed there at the end. So there it all is. So what can I say to close this with a little bit of application for us, so we've got something to really use in our day? Well, this morning in my McShane reading, gotta love McShane, we were in Numbers chapter 20. And in Numbers chapter 20, Moses gets in trouble, that's a way of putting it, for striking the rock at Meribah, right? The rock at Horeb, when God told him to speak to the rock. Because the rock had already been smitten, and it only needed to be smitten once. 1 Corinthians 10 tells us that that rock represented Christ, stricken once, and from then forth would freely pour out the living water. Moses had been very faithful for a long time, but this one act got him kicked out of the promised land. Why? And this ties into Revelation for us here. Because God does not like being misrepresented. And that is exactly what Babylon is all about. Misrepresenting him. It is going to be a false religious system that misrepresents him. And Satan, with Nimrod, Simeramis, and Tammuz, way back at the beginning of time, I mean, pretty close to the beginning of time, early chapters of Genesis, right? Satan tried to deceive the world by misrepresenting God. As I prepare my studies for Hosea for this Sunday, my people are destroyed for a lack of understanding. That's something that's true today, that people are headed to destruction because they're believing in a misrepresentation of God. They don't really know who he is because no one's ever taught them his word, or they're not getting into his word and having the assistance of a good mentor and whatnot to help them along. Discipleship's not happening. So there you guys go. Let us not be guilty of the third commandment, to take the Lord's name, Jesus Christ, to call ourselves a Christian, little Christs is what it means, in vain. The Hebrew word shav, which means without care, without a real seriousness, with an emptiness, that I would call myself a Christian and not really seriously think about the fact that I am representing Christ to the world, and I am in danger of potentially misrepresenting God when I don't live the way the Bible says that I ought to live. There you guys go. I'm going to go see Dallas actually right now. That's where I'm headed off to go hang around with him and Steve Winnery and Joe Cotta and some of my favorite people. So, God bless you guys. Have an amazing day. And maybe just take a moment and ask yourself, am I representing God well? Or I'll end with this quote, the quote that is on Leonard Ravenhill's tombstone. Are the things you are living for worth Christ dying for? Cheers. I'm done for real now. No more profound statements. Semi-profound. I want to toot my own horn there. Here comes the off button. Yep, going for it. You guys can leave.